How's everybody doing? Doing well? All right, great. My name's Ben Simon. I'm the CEO at Imperfect Produce. We're America's leading ugly produce brand. And our what if is, what if we wasted less food in this country? And what if we were able to feed all those 1 billion hungry people across the world? I got too excited. Apparently, I was hitting the, the forward button. So what's going on with food waste? People are talking about food waste now. This is new. Pope Francis said food waste is like stealing from poor people. Obama had some words to say on food waste, and the US government recently created its first ever goal on reducing food waste. Really ambitious goal, by the way, to actually reduce food waste, to cut it in half by the year 2030. Really, really ambitious goal. And probably most notably, most important person is John Oliver. I get so many emails of people who are like, oh man, I started learning about food waste, started getting interested in food waste after I saw that John Oliver piece. Did anybody see it? Yeah. It's pretty funny, right? Did a really good job with it. So this is me 5 years ago. This is a real picture of when I first got my mind blown by this issue of food waste. I was a freshman in college, and I noticed I was doing this research report where I learned that 40% of America's food goes to waste. And at the same time, we have 1 in 6 Americans who are struggling with hunger. Completely crazy. I started researching it, and I was in a student organization on campus, and we started trying to raise awareness about food waste because we saw how much extra food people were just wasting at the end of the day at the campus dining hall. You buy a sandwich, you eat half of it, and it completely shocked me when I got into college, but people will just leave that other half and put it on the conveyor belt. So me and my friends, we created this initiative called GMAS, Grandmothers Making Action, kind of a forced acronym. And we, dining services, I can't believe they let us do this, but we collected all of the food that people just wasted on the conveyor belt at the end of the day, and we collected it over the course of 24 hours, and it was like 700 pounds or something like that of good food that we wasted, and put in a trash can, put in a tarp out front of the dining hall for all to see and smell. And it was pretty interesting. It smelled pretty terrible. And, so here's me even before, any more serious stuff, trying to raise awareness about food waste. And basically, kind of the next step for my journey into food waste and, how I came to get involved in this issue was just being a student at University of Maryland and seeing in the dining hall how much good food we throw out at the pre-consumer level before consumers even put it on their plate. And this is not me, but I was in that dining hall and just saw, it was actually a pizza station, and they had eaten like half of the pizza and the other half was still there, and it was closing time. They're closing down the station, and it looked like they were about to throw this pizza away. And I asked them, sure enough they were. And we met with the director of dining. They convinced us to create this, or we convinced them to let us create this program called Food Recovery Network. And the concept with Food Recovery Network is, how on earth are we going to have all this really good food, this surplus prepared meals, just going to waste at the end of the day when we have hungry people right down the street? And so we created this really simple model. It's like this glorified Tupperware operation. We're literally just putting food into aluminum pans, super simple, and driving it down to local homeless shelters and soup kitchens. Met all food safety requirements. Everybody tried to tell us it's illegal to do that, it's illegal, but there's a federal law called the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act that was passed in 1996 that clears any food donors from liability and encourages all food businesses to donate their surplus food. So created it at UMD. We started calling our friends. I got my buddy at Brown University create the second chapter. We called some more friends, created some chapters out here in California, got some media coverage, and it kind of spiraled up from there. We were on the Do Something Awards on VH1 in 2013, and this is Matthew Morrison from Glee handing me a shoe trophy with wings on it. And basically, but we got like 350 students across the country saw that episode and wrote in to start a chapter on their campus. And so long story short, after like 3 or 4 years, it's now at like 200 colleges across the country. It's one of the largest food waste nonprofits. And for me, it was just this really awesome journey of learning about food waste at a time when nobody was talking about food waste. So, as I mentioned, 40% of our food goes to waste in this country. But one of the craziest stats for me is that, according to the NRDC, if we were to reduce food waste and recover just 15% of the food we're currently wasting, that would be enough food to feed the full diet of 25 million Americans. That's literally half of America's hungry. So that's just the potential that we have in terms of reducing food waste. Do we have any football fans in the room? Football fans? I didn't think there would be too many, but there's this stat that we waste enough food in America every single day to fill the Rose Bowl football stadium, one of the biggest football stadiums in the country, twice every single day. So if you can imagine kind of just the bigger version of that tarp we had put out in front of the dining hall, the size of a football stadium, twice. So we waste a lot of food. That was my first takeaway. And my second takeaway from starting Food Recovery Network was just how much this food waste issue is not one issue. We often talk about food waste like it's this one issue, but it's really actually like over 100 different unique issues within the food supply chain, starting with farms and going to producers and manufacturing facilities, food distributors, institutional food service, dining, restaurants, grocery stores, and then, of course, us as consumers, which is one of the biggest ways that we're still wasting food. The two largest places that we're currently wasting food is at the very front of the supply chain on farms, and then the very end of the supply chain, us as consumers, that half-eaten sandwich in the dining hall. So I decided that after really researching the issue, there was a huge opportunity to reduce the amount of food that's getting wasted on farms. And I was just completely shocked. This is the Salinas landfill. It looks like a big old salad. That's just how much perfectly good vegetables that get wasted there every single day. And there's truckloads of tomatoes. They'll just put them right there in the landfill. It's completely crazy. So researching this issue and found that there's actually 6 billion pounds per year of fruits and vegetables that get wasted, largely because they're too ugly for the grocery store. And it's just the most heartbreaking story of these like funny-looking fruits and vegetables that, to the untrained eye, it's like, why would you waste that? Why would you, not be able to sell that at a grocery store? If you look at these carrots, this is carrots going up a conveyor belt at a huge facility in the Central Valley that sorts I think about 1 million pounds of carrots every single day. They clean it and sort it and pack it into boxes to go out. And they routinely have to reject about 10 to 15 or even as much as 20% of it because it's just not the perfect shape or size. So you see, there's some skinny ones, there's some really big ones, there's crooked ones, there's broken ones, there's miscolored ones. There's all these crazy specs that we're putting on our produce. And as one of our advisors likes to joke, it's like Mother Nature never got the memo when the grocery stores put out this marketing memo that all fruits and vegetables have to look this way. It's just not how they grow. So a key turning point for me in deciding to pass the torch at Food Recovery Network and come out here to follow my dream to start Imperfect was meeting this gentleman in the hairnet right there, Ron Clark. And today, Ron's my co-founder at Imperfect. But I met Ron, and he has this crazy background of over the last 15 years, he was working with the California Association of Food Banks. And they tasked Ron with building out a program to source as much fruits and vegetables as possible from farms around the state of California to 40 food banks across the state. And he ended up creating the supply chain from scratch that's sourcing these carrots and dozens of other items, about 140 million pounds of ugly produce from California farms to California food banks. So I was like, man, I got to link up with this guy. Came out here and started Imperfect. Can anybody guess what the issue with this apple is? what was it? No stem. It's actually it is too small. A few people guessed it. It's really crazy, and they literally will measure them, and it can be just a millimeter too small, and they'll reject it. Sometimes they'll have a market with processors, but even when they have a market with processors, they're selling it for 5, 10, 15 cents a pound, and they're literally losing money on it. The farmers are, but often it's just going to waste. This beautiful pink lady apple that would normally sell for $2, $3 a pound. So with Imperfect, we try to have fun with the branding. We got the Three Amigos eggplants up here. Nosy eggplants. We got Romeo and Juliet carrots. Just love each other too much. Then we got the sweet potatoes that are not pageant worthy, but still perfectly. They got great personalities. And so this is what we do with Imperfect. This is our core product. We sell big heaping boxes of ugly fruits and vegetables for 30 to 50% cheaper than grocery store prices and deliver it straight to your door once a week as a subscription. So again, having more fun on social media. And the concept has really gone viral. We've been covered by, I think, almost every major national publication. We're just on the cover of Guardian Weekly. We made the cover of National Geographic, cover of Scholastic, all this crazy stuff just in our first year. So it sucks to all these cute little critters that couldn't get onto the cover. Sorry, guys. Sorry. This guy actually, laser, it's not working. This guy then got on the cover like the next month, so I'm happy for him. All right, so I'm just wrap up with a few kind of bigger picture ideas and some of my takeaways from my last 5 years in working in food waste, starting at a time when nobody was really talking about food waste, and now, to the present day where we have, much greater awareness. So my first takeaway is that I really believe that there's a food recovery revolution just waiting to happen. There's more and more foundations entering this space. When we started as a nonprofit executive director 5 years ago, there was 0 grant-making programs around reducing food waste. We always had to kind of fit into someone else's grant-making program. But now you have Walmart Foundation, Sodexo Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, all these big foundations entering the space, and that's creating a lot more opportunity for innovation to happen. You've also got, for the first time ever, you have for-profit venture funds, VCs entering the space with funds that are based around food waste, which is also just crazy. And then you've got government policy happening for the first time. And then you also have, just innovators just flooding the space. When I just started 5 years ago, I literally knew everyone in food waste like on a first name basis. There was like 12 of us. It was a really small field. And now today, there's just like hundreds of innovators. I can't keep track of everybody. There's just like a new person every single week that I just like see articles on, and I'm just like, that's awesome. There's so much innovation that's happening, and I really think it's going to continue to explode. My second takeaway is that the only way to feed 9 billion people in 2050 is if we significantly reduce the amount of food we're currently wasting. As Maud just mentioned, we currently have about 1 billion people across the country that are struggling with hunger. That's crazy, 1 billion people. But when we add like 2 more billion people across the country, there's a lot of different speculation. How are we going to feed 9 billion people in 2050? And you hear people talking about different things like, seed selection and, all this different technology for how we can boost crop yields and stuff like that. And, in present day, we're just wiping out rainforest and we're wiping out forest and building more and more farms. And it's just not sustainable. And while those are part of the solution, what we also really need to do is you can't have a conversation around how to feed 9 billion people in 2050 without food waste being one of the biggest parts of it. And my last takeaway is that people have never really thought about food waste that much when you think about climate change, but fighting food waste is fighting climate change, and fighting climate change is fighting food waste. When you think about the typical face of fighting climate change, what do you guys like think of? Cars? Al Gore. That's a good one. I think of like this. It's like hardcore activists like taking over coal mines or something like that. All these different innovators. You really think of like clean energy jobs and different things like that. And while that, again, is a huge part of the solution, there is no greater contributor to climate change globally than the food system. The food system is just, the greenhouse gas emissions are crazy when you think about everything that goes into the food, from the time that you plant the seed and you're growing it, and all that goes into the production, the manufacturing, the transportation, preparing the food, disposing of the food, all of that. And then the fact that we're wasting almost half of our food. It's completely crazy. And one of the biggest opportunities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is to fight food waste. So the note that I'll leave you on is that someday, hopefully, one of the faces of fighting climate change will also be Mr. Potato Heart. Thank you.